接落嚟就應該係英文發言嘅。
We are Hong Kong citizens from different positions of the movement. Here today, this is the first civil press conference of Hong Kong, by the people, for the people. The chief executive of the HKSAR, Mrs. Carrie Lam, announced on August 5th that a press conference would be held on a daily basis by the police force. In response, a group of Hong Kong citizens have initiated a citizens' press conference to bring the people's unheard voice to the public and to highlight the repeated condemnations and empty rhetorics presented by the HKSAR government. After disappearing from the public domain for 11 days, Mrs. Lam and her administration finally came out of hiding yesterday to hold a press conference. Some members of the public are saddened and discontent by the officials' distortion of the facts, defamation of the protesters, and clear ignorance of the culprits which has led to the series of recent events. We hereby make the following announcements. The Financial Secretary, Mr. Paul Chen, yesterday attempted to defame the protest by presenting a series of figures to illustrate the economic consequences of the protest. We hereby point out that there's a lack of direct connection between the slowing down of the economy in the second quarter and the protest. The escalation of the protest did not occur until June the 9th. While only a minority of shops in the affected areas were closed early to avoid the protest, the impact of such was negligible in comparison to the overall size of Hong Kong's economy. Also, the slowdown of retail sales and export sector, as mentioned by Mr. Chen himself, was observed as early as April and May. Rather, the impact of global economy on trading and logistics industry would be the major cause for the slowdown in economic growth in the second quarter instead. We hereby make an urgent call for the government not to waste further public resources by holding daily press conferences. The current administration should be responsible for the public outcry, but they have chosen to stay away from their responsibilities. Such disgraced behavior should be condemned, and the public seeks the government's direct response to the 5 major demands of the people, rather than blaming the civil movement for disturbing the economy. We are extremely saddened by the police force's use of excessive violence against the protesters and intentional assaults to civilians. The police force's own calculation revealed that over 1,000 tear gas canisters have been deployed within the last 2 months. Furthermore, during the march in Tseung Kwan O on August the 4th, members of the Special Tactical Squad attacked and wounded civilians with batons. In Saiwan, the police shot 3 tear gas bullets to the podium of private residential building. During late night on August 4th, officers at Tin Shui Wai police station were believed to have forcefully arrested a female protester by dragging her along with her shirt pulled off and her underwear exposed. Not to mention all these happened with the absence of a female police officer. There were also reports of abuse of police power, including shootings of rubber bullets and excessive firing of tear gas from the inside of the police station without prior warning, and aiming at the heads of the nearby residents. These are only parts of the evidence showing the total loss of self-discipline of the HKPF, and their incompetence in carrying out their lawful duties. Contrary to the government's official statement that the force only intend to use minimum level of force to control situation of the disorder. We strongly condemn the police for their series of violent acts and urge them and the government not to be enemies against the public. The Hong Kong police force should bear in mind that it is their responsibility to serve and protect civilians. It is time to honor their vow in police college, to exercise duty in a manner without fear or favor to any person and with malice or ill will towards none. We hereby again urge the HKSAR government to investigate the abuse of power by some members of the police force, and in particular, its response to the attack on civilians by suspected triads in Yuen Long on June 21st, amongst many other incidents. From live news broadcasters, we could clearly see the police officers talking to a group of white shirts for an extensive period of time, and yet no arrest was made that night. The police force has so far only announced plans of charging a small number of the white shirts with unlawful assembly. This selective law enforcement must be thoroughly investigated, and only by doing so can the public resume their normal and stable life as in the past. We again reiterate our 5 demands, namely the complete withdrawal of the extradition bill, the establishment of an independent commission of inquiry to investigate multiple clashes between the Hong Kong police force and protesters, as well as the indiscriminate attack on civilians in Yuen Long, the withdrawal of characterization of all recent events as riot, the unconditional release of all arrested protesters, and the immediate implementation of dual universal suffrage. Furthermore, we insist on observing Hong Kong's core values of autonomy. We call on the government to return the power back to the people and to address the demands of Hong Kong citizens such that Hong Kong people can be entitled to an independent judicial system and the fundamental freedom of assembly and speech. And thus our city can continue to play an important role in the world stage. The pursuit of democracy, liberty, and equality is the inalienable rights of every citizen. We therefore call on the government to refrain from exterminating our right to pursue these universal values. The public will continue to deliberate on further actions if the government remains idle in addressing the root causes of the political problems that it has single-handedly created, and insists on utilizing brutal forces, preposterous arguments, and threats to support the demands put forward by the citizens. We hereby reiterate that this press conference is not affiliated with any political party or organization leading the movement. Instead, we merely wish to create a platform on which voices of the public can be adequately expressed. This platform aims to act as a counterweight to the government's monopoly on the political discourse on this issue. This platform strives towards allowing more citizens to uncover and engage with the truth of our current situation. As the Chinese saying goes, rumors should not be left unchecked, as when they spread around, some may talk black into white and white into black. It is during times like this, when our future is uncertain and our situation dire, that we must be keen to discern facts from fiction. This is the only way forward. A group of concerned netizens in Hong Kong called for a general strike and seven assemblies across the city yesterday. Hundreds and thousands of citizens answered to the call, displaying their unshaken hands on the 5 demands. We are united by the common causes and will not back down on our demands. We strongly condemn the lawlessness, ruthlessness, and inhumane actions done by the police, and urge an immediate response from the government to our demands.
Since you're not representing, you're claiming you don't represent the whole movement. Can you tell us then why should we be supporting you in the first place? Also, the 5 demands. Some people seems to be more concerned with the full withdrawal of the bill and the setup of an independent probe. Are you saying that all 5 demands should be met before protesters would cease their actions, or where would you stop?
5大訴求佢嘅答案。
你講佢。
訴求。你話 you resist the 5 demands， 你叫佢 repeat 多次啊！你聽佢講嘅。
Sorry, would you mind repeating the question?
You're not representing the whole movement. Why should we be opposing? What's your representativeness in terms of the wider group of people who have participated in the protests?
We merely act as a We merely act as a platform for the people to show their voice in the movement, so that the government is the only one that has the monopoly in people's voice.
Carrie Lam condemned some protesters for dumping Chinese flag into the sea and for promoting Hong Kong independence. So is that some of them are trying to overturn China? Do you think this is this portion of the truth that you consider?
We believe that the protesters' motivation is out of the discontent with the Chinese government's stand on Hong Kong issue, and their obstruction towards Hong Kong's movement and Hong Kong's road towards democracy.
So you think they're not really trying to overturn China, but you're not representing them?
It is up to their individual motivation otherwise.
係，請發問。
How effective do you think are the previous actions you guys have taken? And the second question is, do you afraid?
Sorry, do you mind repeating the question?
Sure. How effective do you think are the previous actions you guys have taken? And do you afraid that there will be further action taken by China, such as the PLA crackdown? Thank you.
We would just like to reaffirm that it's not whether it's our action, but it's a people action. The action by Hong Kong people. It is not us movement of our free, but the movement of Hong Kong. What's the second
And
question?
do you afraid that there will be further action taken by China, such as the PLA crackdown?
We are uncertain whether it will happen. Only time could tell. But Hong Kongers will certainly react to that, and the world economy too.